Sadhuvat iti madvashatam modhas tampada samatadayat nabnasauduram aniya shete mam ita sadhuvat iti madvachatam modhas sampada. Ladies? Navnasauduram aniya shete mam iha sadhuvat tampada samatadayat navnasauduram aniya shete mam iha sadhuvat iti madvachitam modhas tampada samatadayat. Nanu, is it so? Asau he duram, a long distance, aniya, bringing, shete is lying down, mam, me, iha, here, sadhovat, like a saintly person, iti, so, matva, thinking him, achutam, to be Lord Krishna, modaha, deluded, tam, him, pada, with his foot, samatadayat, struck with full force. Translation. So, after leading me such a long distance, now he is lying here like some saint, thus thinking the sleeping man to be Lord Krishna. The deluded fool kicked him with all his strength. Mucukunda. Kalyavana. So here's some commentary. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes, by the angry glance from Mucukunda, Kalyavana's body caught on fire. And then that fire generated from Kalyavana's own body burned him up and turned him to ashes. This was because of the boon prayed for and received by Mucukunda. This is mentioned in the Harivamsa, which we're going to read. Mucukunda repeatedly said, translation from Harivamsa, Mucukunda repeatedly said, "O Devatas, may that person who wakes me from sleep be burned up by my eyes with fiery anger." Unquote. He prayed for the boon of sleep because of the words of the ancient sage Garga. The words of the ancient sage Garga. The words of the ancient sage Garga we heard yesterday. Garga, the son of Gargamuni, asked for a benediction from Lord Shiva that he would have a son who would give problem or destroy or harm the Yadu dynasty. So he prayed for the boon of sleep because of the words of the ancient sage Garga. Now, Mucukunda didn't know that that would happen, but he was inspired to speak that way by Krishna, asking for that boon for more than one reason. One of the reasons was he wanted to sleep, and he didn't want anybody to disturb him. So he asked for that boon so that Indra wouldn't come and disturb him again. Come and fight for a few more years, please. So 2 reasons. Quote, I will remain asleep without waking until Krishna appears. Oh, it is impossible for me, longing for the sight of Krishna, to remain awake for many cycles of 4 yugas by sleeping. That time will pass in a few moments. So this is a different one. This is Gargamuni, not Gargya, by the ancient sage Garga. Ancient sage Garga said, one day you'll see Krishna. So here we go. He prayed for the boon of burning up the waker's body by his angry eyes to instill fear in Indra, who may try to wake him up to destroy more of Indra's enemies. This boon was granted as described in the Vishnu Purana. Quote, the Devas said, he who wakes up Mucukunda from sleep will instantly turn to ashes by the fire from his body. And of Vishwanath's commentary, here's Jiva Goswami's commentary. Kalyavana did not think that Krishna could not go anywhere else. He did not consider how Krishna could suddenly be lying down. How could he consider this to be Krishna, since the form he saw did not have 4 arms? He was fooled because of the deep darkness and his anger. Okay, so that's text 10. 2 more to go. The man, that's Mucukunda, the man awoke after a long sleep, and he slowly opened his eyes. Looking about, he saw Kalyavana standing beside him. Jiva Goswami writes, while he was ruling in the Treta Yuga of the first cycle of yugas of Vaivasvata Manu, that's a long time, 27 yuga cycles later. That's a long sleep. And how long did Gargamuni live? That's another question. Don't have the answer to that one. He went with help from the Devas. After that, he had been sleeping. After that, he had been sleeping till the present 28th cycle. He opened his eyes slowly because of being dizzy from suddenly being wakened by force. So I'll just repeat. From Jiva Goswami, who is certainly authoritative, we're hearing how many yuga cycles passed. Having heard from Gargamuni that he would see Krishna one day. 27 yuga cycles passed. So so I don't understand, so don't ask. How is it that Gargamuni was still around, unless it was another Gargamuni or another iteration, another incarnation or something like that? So it's not clear. But he was asleep for a long time. Text 12. The awakened man was angry and cast his glance at Kalyavana, whose body burst into flames in a single moment. O King Parikshit, Kalyavana was burnt to ashes. Purport, BBT purport. The man who incinerated Kalyavana with his glance was named Mucukunda. As he will explain to Lord Krishna, he had fought for a long time on behalf of the demigods, finally taking as his benediction the right to sleep undisturbed. The Harivangsha explains that he secured the further benediction of being able to destroy anyone who disturbed his sleep. Acharya Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur quotes from Sri Harivamsa as follows, gives the Sanskrit. Again and again Mucukunda said, O demigods, with eyes blazing with anger, may I incinerate anyone who awakens me from sleep. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that Mucukunda made this rather morbid request to scare Lord Indra, who, Mucukunda thought, might otherwise wake him repeatedly to request his help in fighting Indra's cosmic enemies. Indra's consent to Mucukund's request is described in Sri Vishnu Purana as follows, gives the Sanskrit. The demigods declared, quote, whoever wakens you from sleep will suddenly be burned to ashes by a fire generated from his own body. Here is Jiva Goswami's commentary. As soon as Mucukunda glanced, Kalyavana burst into flames and immediately turned to ashes. Oh, Parikshit, you were born in a great dynasty. You should not consider such powers astonishing. The benediction from the Devas that he could burn him up with the anger of his glance is inferred according to Shukadev and thus not mentioned. Some verses after verse 20 have been interpolated. What interpolated means fudged or modified or interjected. Jiva Goswami. Some verses after verse 20 have been interpolated. Vishnu Purana, however, says that this was part of the benediction. Gives the Sanskrit. The Devatas declared, whoever awakens you from sleep will suddenly be burned to ashes by a fire generated from his own body. Unquote. Harivangsha also agrees with this, gives the Sanskrit. Again and again, Mucukunda said, O Devatas, with eyes blazing with anger, may I incinerate anyone who wakens me from sleep. Unquote. Indra, along with the Devatas, then agreed. Final paragraph, Jiva Goswami. Thus it is understood that he prayed that he would sleep until he saw the Lord. Until then, it was better to sleep without being awakened. The reason for awakening is described. He did not want to be awakened again, even by a devotee, in order to destroy the demons' armies. Intrigue, right? Transcendental intrigue. I'm going to read this section from Harivangsha where it discusses this, and there isn't, to my knowledge, there's no electronic version of Harivangsha because the publisher has copyrights. Now, it was translated by Bhumipati Das, edited by Purnapragya, and printed by, I think it's Torchlight. What's the book publisher? Rasa Bihari Lal and Sons, Vrindavan. And they say, you know, you cannot this and that and the other thing and the other thing and the other thing. So it's not, there's no digital version, but I happen to have a printed version. So I'm just going to read the relevant section. It's worth noting, it's not mentioned anywhere in these commentaries from Harivangsha, but Harivangsha says, not Gargya, the son of Garga, but Garga was insulted, being called a eunuch by Yadus, and some of the Yadus laughed, and he became angry. Vishnu Purana says it was the son of Garga. That's a detail. So here we go. Yeah, here it says, Garga Muni worshipped Lord Shiva, who carries a trident and whose form is inconceivable. He continued his austerities for 12 years, sustaining his life by eating iron ore and nothing more, similar to Vishnu Purana, just a different person. Being pleased by the sage's austerities, Mahadev appeared before him and awarded him the benediction that in the future he would have a powerful son who would be capable of defeating the great heroes of the Vrishni and Andaka dynasties. And it didn't say he would defeat, but he would have a son capable of defeating the great heroes of the Vrishni and Andaka dynasties. Next text. A Yavana king, doesn't give his name, a Yavana king happened to hear about this benediction of Mahadev. By the arrangements of providence, the Yavana had no son and desperately wanted one. The Yavana king brought Garga Muni, not Gargya, but here it's Garga Muni, to his palace and gave him facility to freely mingle with the cowherd women in the pastures. So this is a little different than his wife. You'll hear. There was an Apsara named Gopali residing in that cow pasture, having assumed the disguise of a cowherd girl. It was she who bore the incomparable son of Gargamuni, different than Vishnu Purana. Thus, by the influence of Mahadev's benediction, Gargamuni begot a powerful and heroic son named Kalyavana from the womb of the Apsara, who had assumed a human form. O king, thereafter the child happily grew up in the palace of his foster father. After the death of his foster father, Kalyavana ascended the throne and continued to rule the kingdom of the Yavanas. Having a strong desire to engage in warfare, King Kalyavana inquired from the Brahmanas, asking them to name the greatest warriors on earth. The great sage Narada Muni then informed him about the Vrishni and Andaka dynasties. Similar, now it's quite similar to the Vishnu Purana version. Although the all-powerful Lord Madhusudana knew that Kalyavana had received information from the great sage Narada, he paid no heed to the Yavana king. Then there's some further detail that's interesting. As Kalyavana became more and more prosperous and influential, many other kings, especially the rulers of the Mlechas, took shelter of him, becoming his followers. Indeed, many thousands of Mlecha clans, such as, give some names, Shakas, Tusars, Daradas, Paradas, Shringalas, Kashas, same as mentioned in the Bhagavatam, Kashas, and the Pallavas, who resided in the Himalayas, joined him. All of these Mlechas were plunderers who dressed as dacoits and carried weapons. Being accompanied by these ferocious mlechas, King Kalyavana attacked the city of Mathura. Kalyavana had many hundreds of thousands of warriors mounted upon elephants, horses, donkeys, and camels. Being surrounded by his vast army, he began to create havoc, so that even the earth began to tremble. The sun became covered by the dust stirred by the feet of the soldiers. Incredibly, a river was created, listen to this, by the stolen urine evacuated by the soldiers and their animals. A river. Oh, ruler of men, that river was filled with huge mounds of camel dung and horse dung, and because of this, it was called Ashvashvakrit. That's the name of the river. When Vasudeva, king of the Vrishni and Andaka dynasties, this is his father, Vasudeva, not Ugrasena, but anyway, heard of Kalyavana's attack with his vast army, he immediately summoned his associates and spoke as follows. Now we find ourselves in a very dangerous position indeed. A calamity has befallen the Vrishni and Andaka dynasties because of our greatest enemy, Kalyavana, who cannot be killed by us due to the benediction of Mahadev, the wielder of the trident. He has attacked our city. Although we may try to subdue our enemy by various means, rest assured that we will not succeed. He is intoxicated with pride due to his incomparable strength and is determined to conquer us. The great sage Narada had advised us to reside here until such an occurrence as this. It is said that the best way to deal with a very proud and powerful enemy is to behave with him in a very pleasant and humble manner. Jarasandha is very envious of us and will never forgive us. Many kings that we had previously defeated and others that were allied with Kamsa are ready to assist Jarasandha, hoping to gain revenge. These sinful kings have already killed many of our relatives. If we remain at Mathura, we will continuously face the wrath of our enemies. Considering this, Krishna also decided that we should establish ourselves somewhere else. Hoping to avoid this inconvenience, the Lord had sent an envoy to Kalyavana. Very curious detail. He had placed a black, poisonous snake inside a pitcher. Trick. After carefully closing the lid, he sent it as a gift with his envoy, Krishna's envoy, to Kalyavana. Lord Govinda wanted to frighten Kalyavana by sending him a poisonous snake. O descendant of Bharata, the messenger handed the pitcher to Kalyavana, saying that Lord Krishna is as formidable as a black snake. Kalyavana felt insulted by the Yadavas. In a fit of anger, he gathered thousands of ants and put them in the pitcher. These carnivorous ants covered the snake and bit it until it died. Kalyavana then tightly closed the pitcher and sent it back to Lord Krishna, demonstrating that he was not at all one to be intimidated. When Lord Krishna understood that his attempt to frighten Kalyavana had failed, he immediately left Mathura and went to Dwarka. Desiring to cause the destruction of the envious Kalyavana, Lord Vasudeva, Krishna, established the city of Dwarka and then brought all the members of the Vrishni dynasty there. Actually, almost all. There were some remaining in Mathura, giving them all assurances. Thereafter, the Lord returned to Mathura. Lord Madhusudana, whose intentions cannot be thwarted, traveled to Mathura on foot with no weapons other than his two mighty arms. When Kalyavana saw that Krishna had come to Mathura, he immediately came out of the palace that he had occupied, feeling both elation and anger. However, after revealing his presence to Kalyavana, Krishna quickly fled away. Kalyavana, the ruler of the Yavanas, chased Lord Govinda, desiring to arrest him. However, as much as he tried, he could not catch Krishna, the master of all mystic powers. Long ago, When the demigods and the demons fought a great battle, Mandhata's son, that's the father of Mucukunda, Mandhata, the illustrious Mucukunda, fought very bravely on behalf of the demigods. Being very pleased with Mucukunda, the demigods asked him to accept the benediction. Mucukunda then requested that he might enjoy an undisturbed sleep for as long as he would desire. He became exhausted from fighting, and before sleeping, he spoke as follows. He repeatedly asked, "My dear rulers of the planets, I request that if, while sleeping, someone disturbs me, then my angry glance should burn the intruders to ashes." Upon hearing this, the demigods heartily agreed, saying, "So be it." Thereafter, as instructed by the demigods, Mucukunda approached the king of the mountains. Being exceedingly fatigued from fighting, Mucukunda entered a mountain cave and slept a very long time until he fortunately received the darshan of Lord Krishna. The great sage Narada had approached Lord Krishna, the son of Vasudeva, and narrated to him everything about Mucukunda's benediction received from the demigods and the power of his fiery glance. Therefore, as Lord Krishna was being chased by the king of the Mlechas, Kalyavana, he entered the cave where Mucukunda was sleeping. Lord Krishna, the foremost of intelligent personalities, carefully avoided disturbing Mucukunda. He simply stood in a corner of that dark cave. Feverishly chasing Lord Krishna, Kalyavana entered the cave and saw the sleeping Mucukunda. Thinking him to be Krishna, wicked-minded Kalyavana stood in front of Mucukunda, who for him was just like death personified. Just as a fly enters the fire for its own destruction, Kalyavana kicked Mucukunda in the chest, thinking him to be Krishna. As soon as he was kicked, Mucukunda woke up with a start, and upon seeing the Yavana king before him, he became furious. King Mucukunda remembered the benediction received from Indra as he gazed upon Kalyavana standing in front of him. Indeed, as he angrily gazed upon Kalyavana, the Yavana burst into flames. Just as the thunderbolt burns dry wood to ashes, the blazing fire emanating from Mucukunda's eyes, which were red with rage, burned Kalyavana to ashes within a moment. In this way, the supremely intelligent Lord Krishna accomplished his purpose. Thereafter, he spoke as follows to the powerful King Mucukunda, who had woken up after a very long sleep. Now, there's lots of things, how do we understand all these things? I mean, Krishna has all potencies, but what about Mucukunda living and sleeping for the duration of 27 yuga cycles? And Gargamuni, according to Harivamsa, I mean, this part is not quoted by our acharyas, although they refer to sections from Harivamsa which they repeat. And so, how to take it? Well, there's a little selective. I mean, that's a fact. And so they're not referring to everything, but they're referring to selected sections where it matches Bhagavatam, and quite similarly Vishnu Purana. One of the considerations that we need to take as Hare Krishna devotees is the Srimad Bhagavatam is the Supreme Court. And lower courts may say whatever they may say. We don't discount them, but it's not the Supreme Court. So the final outcome is Prabhupada chose to not include Vishnu Purana and Harivamsa. Our acharyas have included them, but we don't find them, well, this was not done by Prabhupada, it was done by his followers. So they selected certain sections that don't conflict with and are less bewildering. Bewildering, yeah, that's good. Than some of these other references. I'm reading them because they're interesting. And in general, Harivamsa is accepted by our line as authoritative. Now, obviously, there's some sections that are given less weight, and there's some sections given more weight. It's one of the reasons to not include this is because we don't have to say things like that if we don't read it. Although Srila Prabhupada in his Bhaktivedanta purports would quote from Harivamsa. And our predecessor acharyas, they also, from time to time, as we see here, quote from Harivamsa. So it's an authoritative literature. It's just not the Supreme Court. Now, Krishna doesn't need Narada Muni to inform him of the benediction of Mucukunda from the demigods, because Krishna is omniscient. But it's mentioned here because Krishna would sometimes engage his devotees in different things. And then, like, here's a nice example. When it came to the two Krishnas in Dwarka, and he received two requests simultaneously or the same day. One, please come to attend the, what's it called? The ceremony where Yudhishthira would be installed as king in Indraprastha. What's that called? My mind is blank. Rajasuya Yagya. Rajasuya Yagya. To become king. And simultaneously, another messenger came from the kings that were in the prison of Jarasandha, appealing to Krishna to get them out of jail. Not just get them out of jail, but they were, the plan of Jarasandha was to have a mass human sacrifice to Mahabhairava, a form of Lord Shiva, where some vast number, the number of queens that Krishna married was 16,100 princesses that were imprisoned by Narakasura. The number of kings who were imprisoned by Jarasandha was more than that, 20,000 some hundred. It was like a mass human sacrifice plan. So they sent a messenger who brought a message to Krishna. Please relieve us from this circumstance. And they were devotees, they were kings, They weren't subjects, they were kings. That's a lot of kings, 20,000, some hundred kings. And Krishna was their protector. So obviously Krishna is going to protect those who he's the protector of, and they're appealing for protection, naturally. So what did Krishna do? He gave some service to Uddhava. He asked Uddhava, what do you think? Not that Krishna didn't know, but he gave an opportunity for his wise and prudent and very capable minister. His cousin brother. But he gave some service. So Krishna would sometimes give some service to Narada. Krishna doesn't need, but Narada likes to serve, and Krishna gives him some service. So Narada comes and informs, at least here in Harivamsa. I'd not heard this before I read it this morning. But Narada informed him of this benediction of benediction of Mucukunda. Now Krishna is omniscient. He doesn't need spies or informants or learned persons to indicate anything. But he likes giving service to his devotees. This is just some appreciation of revealing Krishna's nature. So we can hear a quality of Krishna, and it's nice. And then we hear the pastimes of Krishna is displaying his qualities, and it's very relishable. And he likes, he's enjoying. And Narada's enjoying the position of being the servant. And this is the nature of loving exchange. There's Bhagavan, and there's the servitor of Bhagavan, and there's loving exchange between Bhagavan and the servitor Bhagavan. So, what's the application? We have forgotten our relationship with Krishna. And we can hear about how he's very kind, but when we hear the pastimes of Krishna, he's all-powerful. He certainly can protect. So when Krishna went with, it was Uddhava's advice that to kill Jarasandha, he's very powerful. He is as powerful as 10,000 elephants. He didn't say that you can't do it, but he said a suitable combatant for him would be Bhima. So you go with Arjuna and Bhima. And Krishna liked the plan, so he followed his plan. Just his, Krishna doesn't need somebody to make a plan. But he liked the plan because he gave Bhima some service. Krishna likes to give service to his devotees. And Uddhava said they're equal in strength. So Bhima won't be able to defeat him unless you're there. And if you're there, he'll be able to defeat him. So go disguise as Brahmanas because it's well known. This is just like political strategy. He's well known for being charitable to Brahmanas, so go disguise as Brahmanas. How is Bhima going to disguise himself as a Brahmana? Powerful arms and shoulders and massive body. That's not a Brahmana's body. But this is how they went. And when they disclosed, very, very tactfully, Krishna is the one to disclose. You've come, Brahmanas have come, very good. What can I do for you? And Krishna said a number of things that would kind of checkmate Jarasandha, so he would have to, do what it was his nature anyways. And then the appeal was, we'd like to have combat with you. Jarasandha immediately understood, these aren't brahmanas, this is tricky Krishna. So, okay, I'll fight. But I won't fight with you, Krishna, you're a coward. And I won't fight with Arjuna, you're younger. But Bhima, he's a suitable match for me. So he picked up a club, because Bhima, and he knew that Bhima was good with club fighting, and he tossed him a club. Let's fight. So they went out of the city, went into a field somewhere, and had a fight. It went on for 28 days, and they couldn't defeat each other. Neither could defeat the other one. Although Uddhava said, by your presence alone, he'll be able to defeat. The otherwise can't defeat Jarasandha. The 29th morning, Bhima disclosed to Krishna, I can't defeat him. Krishna didn't say anything. He smiled. He took a twig that had a fork in the twig and broke it in half. Immediately Bhima understood. He threw Jarasandha on the ground, put one foot on one leg, with the other leg he lifted and ripped him in half. Because Jarasandha, you know the story? How Jarasandha became Jarasandha? Looking at you, you don't know the story. Here's the story. Jarasandha was the son of a king who had no children. The king had 2 queens. I forget the king's name. King had 2 queens. So Jarasandha's father went to the forest undergoing austerities. A Brahmana appeared, and it came and said, what would you like? I'd like to have a son. The Brahmana gave him a mango, said, give this to your queens and you'll have a son. So he split the mango into 2. One queen gave birth to half a child, the other queen gave birth to the other half of the child, and it was yuck. So he had the 2 halves discarded. A demoness, a Rakshasi, named Jara, found the 2 halves. She was going to eat them. But she, out of curiosity, she put the 2 halves together, became a whole. So she had heard, these are the 2 halves of the king. So she took the child back to the king and said, here's your child. And he was very pleased. She said, what benediction would you like? He said, just name him after me. That's the only benediction. So Jara, Sanda. Sanda. The joining of the 2 halves, Sanda. Jara, Sanda. So he became Jarasandha. Very powerful. Couldn't be defeated. Except by ripping him in half. But he didn't rip him in half. He gave Bhima the service. And then Krishna embraced Bhima, and Bhima was glorified. Krishna likes giving honor to his devotees. Same Kurukshetra battle. He wanted Arjuna to get the glory. Here he wanted Mucukunda to get the glory. And sure enough, he got the glory. Because he defeated this wicked Kaliyavana. And we'll hear further. After he was defeated, Krishna and Balaram, Krishna returned. Balaram and Krishna started finishing the entire, what was the number, 30 million soldiers? Was that the number? 30 million? 30 million soldiers? And they're powerful Mleccha kings, and whatever their armies were made up of, etc. Finish them all. Just the two. 30 million. Then we hear later, this is coming attractions from the Bhagavatam. They started gathering up all the gold and the valuables that were ornaments in order to take all that to Dwarka, because the other dynasty was in Dwarka. And as they were doing that, that's when Jarasandha came with his army. That's an earlier chapter, earlier than this one. No, excuse me. Earlier than the defeat of Jarasandha. So, Krishna ran and went up a mountain. Jarasandha couldn't find them, so he burned the mountain. They jumped from the mountain and went to Dwarka. On the way, Balaram got married. Balaram was married before Krishna was married. Anyway, the pastimes are just like very charming. But it's not fiction. It's the pastimes of the Supreme Lord showing his all-powerfulness and his loving exchanges with his devotees. Pritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskatam, and so forth. Such nice literature, Srimad Bhagavatam. Such nice literature. Meant to attract our hearts and our minds to Krishna. Let's see if there's some discussion. Is the broadcasting working now? Yay.
Thanks to Shravan Mangal Prabhu.
Okay. So you have something. You're tapping the microphones. That means you've got something.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. You thinking, appreciating the creativity of Krishna, Lord Krishna, putting all these pastimes together. But I was thinking, is it Purnamasi related to Garga Muni also, right? No? There's a sister or some.
Purnamasi is the mother of Krishna's guru. Sandipani Muni.
Yes.
Not Garga Muni.
Yeah, I'm confused, but I remember there's someone related to Garga Muni.
That's Sandipani Muni.
Yeah, okay. And just thinking on this Garga Muni, I think someone asked you the other day if it was the same Garga as the father.
Yeah, it was Snehavali. She's probably going to ask it again.
Yeah, but I was thinking that, this Garga Muni or Gargya, either one, to create all that trouble, knowing that the father has that vision or that understanding of Krishna's coming, and creating all that difficulty for the Yadus, that they're going to have this element, this person, that it cannot be destroyed by the...
Kind of what?
Cannot be destroyed or defeated.
Cannot be destroyed.
So Krishna had to go through all these indirect,
He doesn't have to do anything, but he does.
Yeah. Anyway.
He's enjoying. And those that understand Krishna understand that's what he's doing. He creates intrigue because he enjoys solving the intrigue. He's enjoying, and he's attracting our hearts and minds to him and his cleverness. What to speak of his pastimes in Vrindavan?
Yeah, it's involving, thinking of this Gargya or Garga Rishi becoming agitated because someone make some, rude comment or something to be that disturbed because of that, and it's Krishna's influence.
He's a devotee. Garga Muni is a great brahmana and a great devotee. So how is a devotee going to get agitated by someone saying something, insulting?
Right. I guess it's like Kim Parikshit becoming...
It's like Maharaj Parikshit being angry because Shamak Rishi didn't receive him. Something else.
Guru Maharaj, who composed Hari Vamsa?
What about it?
Who composed it?
Vyas. Sri Krishna Dvaipayana Vyas. On the cover. It's an addendum to Mahabharata. Anything else? Yes.
That mention of Bhima being the most suitable combatant for Jarasandha, that he considered Krishna a coward.
Yes.
What is that based on?
He ran from the battlefield.
On which occasion?
That was earlier, before Krishna went to Dwaraka. It was the 28th time, something like that. After Jarasandha had been defeated so many times, humiliated completely, just left standing alone on the battlefield. He came the 28th time, I think that's the number, and then Krishna ran. So he's a coward. Kshatriyas don't run. He's a coward. He's a useless coward boy. So, he's not a worthy combatant because he's a coward.
So this intersection of the two kings coming to attack Mathura has both of them experiencing Krishna fleeing, so to speak.
Krishna's experiencing Krishna as what?
As somebody who is fleeing from a battle or a fight.
Yeah. So it's a comment, not a question. Yeah. Anything? Anything? Srila Prabhupada ki?